All right. So, as I said, today's topic is from dysfunction to high performance. And there's a reason why you registered and why you showed up today. Whatever that is, let's get to the bottom of it and see if we can offer you some solutions or take away some inspirational ideas as to how to make your team high performing. So, I'm going to start off with a Slido. And just want to make sure you can all see my screen. Yes. The first thing I'm going to ask you to do is pull up your phone and please let us know which one best describes your current team experience. It's all anonymous, so don't worry, we will not call you out to ask you about what your current situation is, but let's get a feel of the people in the room. What is happening? Where are you at? Are you in the zone? Are you high performing? Or are you hit and miss or stuck in the mud or highly dysfunctional? I'm glad to see that so far we're mostly good, not great. You mostly get along and you're meeting your goals, but you could be doing so much better. That's great. Okay. We don't have any serious dysfunction, no teams at the moment. That's good. Okay. This looks like a balance I can definitely work with. Hit and miss and good, not great. All right, I'm glad we don't have any extremely dysfunctional. If you scroll down, there's one more selection, which is highly dysfunctional, and it means that you probably need a lot of encouragement and support. It must be hard to get through the day. Okay, all right. Anyone barely surviving? I don't think so, which is good. Our majority, as I said, good, not great, hit and miss. You're in the perfect place. We're going to give you a lot of tools to how to take you from good to great. And hit and miss, there could be some psychological safety or trust issues here. So we'll definitely give you some diagnostic tools. And thank you for participating in our poll. I'm going to remind you of our objectives today. And first one is to really recognize where dysfunctional patterns start. It's the name of our masterclass. So there is something about the name that drew you to our session today. We're going to look at what are those factors that block team performance. And I'm sure you will not be a stranger to these characteristics. We'll talk about them in a moment. And I don't mean to traumatize anyone. So let's take a step back, breathe, regulate as we discuss the potential dysfunctions. We're also going to be sharing quite a number of diagnostic tools throughout. Some I'll be put in the chat, some we will share with you afterwards. And we're going to look at some big topics like unclear roles or lack of trust, lack of psychological safety. And then I'm going to share with you some immediate tools, some immediate interventions that you can try out. And of course, you are going to walk away with an action plan based on how to build a high performing team. So those are objectives today. And as I said, I hope that you will engage, share comments in the chat, and unmute yourself to ask questions at any time. A quick introduction to the Hinwood Institute. For those of you who have joined our sessions before, you know that Barbara Clifford and Michael Massey started the Hinwood Institute in 2021 to honor the legacy of Dr. John Hinwood. There is a huge body of work on stress management, and I'm sure all of you are familiar with Barb Clifford. If not, you will be. She's delivering a masterclass next week. I highly recommend attending one of her high impact, very engaging sessions. Now, what do I have to do with it? My name is Cecilia Young. I'm based in Vancouver, Canada, And I joined forces with the Hinwood Institute in January of 2025. So today, the Hinwood Institute, here is Barbara and I in Thailand. The Hinwood Institute is the two of us. And because of our combined years of experience in the workplace, we bring over 50 years of work experience. I specialize in leadership development. Barbara specializes in time management, productivity, and we're very comfortable talking about the uncomfortable aspects of the workplace. We're a couple of crazy gals, as Barb liked to call us. We are a couple of Gen Xers. We are familiar with those awkward discussions in the workplace. Barb specializes in workplace mediation, leading change, relationships, conflict, team dysfunctions. Bring it on. We are very comfortable talking about these topics. But mostly, if you've worked with us before and if you know us, you know that we're here to add value. We are imperfect, we are experienced, and we are very passionate about supporting others. So that's enough about us. I want to share with you our topic today, which is part of one of the 6 pillars. And today's topic is under the pillar of better together. There are so many specializations, and there's leadership development, there's stress management, there's emotional intelligence. Today, I really want to get to the root of teamwork. What causes dysfunctions? How do we resolve those really tangible obstacles that surface when a team is dysfunctional, when there's a lack of trust? It could get a little awkward, but I promise you, you will be able to see some light at the end of the tunnel after attending the session. So let's get started about dysfunction. How does dysfunction show up? You might put in the chat, I'll ask you how it shows up for you, but from the opening slide, it doesn't seem like there's any serious dysfunction right now. However, we have all worked on a dysfunctional team before. We have high-performing team experience, and we have high dysfunctional team experiences. And we know which one that we want to stay away from. We know how dreadful it can be. So how dysfunction shows up. You may have your own experience. I'm just going to summarize in 4 ways. You start off in the morning. This is the morning dread. You log on and you are already dreading the day because you don't know what will transpire throughout the day. There's so many changing goals, and you don't even know when you are able to get to your workload because it is so heavy. And you're starting the day not very inspired. Then, I don't know if you're familiar with this, I've certainly been here before, is the meeting marathon, meeting after meeting, where you're expected to join in, but not a lot gets done. There's probably a lot of side glances, and those of you who are just trying to distract yourself, breathe to get through to the next one. We've all been there. It is uncomfortable. It is a waste of time. And you can look around the room and the faces mostly say, I would rather be somewhere else. Another form of dysfunction is you keep it zipped up. The reason is, what's the purpose of speaking up? Your ideas are not acknowledged. And even if you had a brilliant one, why would you share it? You kind of just want to keep it to yourself. Or you're not rewarded for sharing your concerns. And worse, you'll be shut down because the last time you spoke up, nothing happened. And worse, you were removed from the project. So it's better to just keep it zipped up. Last one is the crash. It's the end of the day. You feel exhausted, you log off, but you really don't know what you accomplished. And it doesn't feel like you got anything done because of all the meetings. And now you're going to have to repeat and come back. So I'm going to ask you, does any of this seem familiar? And if so, you could put a comment in the chat. How does dysfunction show up for you, if you're okay to share? Okay. Brianna says, yes, poor communication, constant change. I totally agree. And Renee says, yes. And yes, these slides will be shared, Kelly. So you just need to pop us an email. And when we send the follow-up email with the cheat sheet, we do a summary of our session today. And if you want a copy of the slides, our administrator will send the copy to you. Okay, great. So Alicia says, situation where people stop communicating is the beginning of the end. Yes. So we know what dysfunction looks like. We know how it feels. And I'm going to give you a simple diagnostic right now. And I'm not sure if anyone here is familiar with Patrick Lencioni's 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. It's actually a great little book to read. And maybe if you're in the middle of a dysfunction, you're thinking, I don't have time to read a book, Cecilia. But I can tell you that it's a quick and easy read. And it follows the story of Catherine as she becomes a leader of a dysfunctional team, or on the surface, in the beginning, they seem very normal, very high performing. But once she gets to work with them, she can see the dysfunctions. So not saying that, go ahead and read it. I'm going to share with you the crux of it. And basically, if you're not familiar, thank you. Kelly says team members switching lanes. Yeah. So Patrick Lencioni shares the 5 dysfunctions, and this has been around for a while. So the number one dysfunction of a team is the absence of trust. I'm not sure if you have used this formula, but boy, oh boy, when there is no trust, it is very hard to get things done. Now, I'm not going to be going through all the 5 dysfunctions. In fact, I'll work largely with trust for the next 20 minutes or so, because trust is so crucial for a high-performing team. Because if there is an absence of trust, it's very hard to move up to performance. HEO, I don't know the name, is talking about constantly letting you down, not being able to trust part of the
Helen.
team. Helen, oh, hi, Helen.
Sorry, I couldn't get it to work earlier, so
Oh,
yeah.
no worries.
Yeah.
Great to
All right.
have you back, Helen.
Thank you.
And then Michael says dismissal of employees input by leadership on a power trip instead of leading and guiding. Yeah, there's a lot of dysfunction that you're describing here. Let me get to how it shows up in the textbooks and then how it shows up in day-to-day. So we have absence of trust. And if there is no trust, it leads to so many dysfunctional behaviors. But this directly connects to the next dysfunction, which is fear of conflict. So Lencioni says that if there's no trust, people are not going to engage honestly. If they're not going to engage honestly, they will not engage in healthy conflict. So if there's no conflict, we tend to think that if there's no conflict, it means that there is teamwork, but that's actually the opposite. If there's no conflict, it means that people are not sharing their views honestly. And when there is no conflict, there's no healthy discussions, then there is no commitment. When there's no commitment, you're seeing a team that's staying in their zones, just getting their work done. They don't need to contribute. And when there's no commitment, there is no accountability. And finally, there's no attention to results. So as I said, I'm not going to get into all the dysfunctions, but I'm going to spend a little bit of time with trust, because trust is one of those, I don't know if you would call it tangible or intangible, but in my career, when I've done a lot of training on trust, people have very different views on what trust is. Different cultures trust differently. There are different trust elements, whether in the public sector or private sector. But before I come back to that, I'm just going to talk quickly about the impact of trust. So as you can see from my slides here, there's trust and then there's no trust. And maybe you're saying, yeah, you don't need to tell me, Cecilia. I know there's a lack of trust, but I'm just going to break it down here and see how you can connect with how it's showing up in your workplace. So if you're a leader, if you work with a manager, if there's trust, you have conversations. You get feedback. You check in with each other, you check in with your team, you check in with your coworkers. And then if somebody is being quiet or somebody's performance is dropping, you show some concern and you show some interest in their life. If you are working with a team, you set goals, you delegate tasks, and you work in partnership. So let me show you what it looks like when there isn't trust, when there's an absence of trust. So now a conversation becomes an interrogation. Feedback is actually reprimand. Instead of checking in, you are micromanaging or you are being micromanaged. Concern becomes spying. Interest is meddling. You're not interested. You're kind of meddling in my life. And goal setting, you're just giving out orders. Even worse, delegating, you're not delegating, you're just dumping stuff on me. And a partnership is now a power play. There's an imbalanced power dynamic. So you can pop in the chat. Does any of this seem familiar to you? Have you been on one side or the other when you felt that because of lack of trust, both sides? Yeah, thank you, Kelly. Alicia, yeah, I'm sorry that you left a workplace. And I'm not saying that today's masterclass will solve all these problems, but at least we know what we're working with. And I'm going to share with you some solutions. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your comments. Yes, Helen, definitely a huge change if there is no trust. So instead of doing all the other team interventions, I feel like because it's the base, we want to spend more time on trust. Because if you can get the trust right, if you can resolve the trust issues, it will make all the other processes and interventions a lot easier. Mark says, I've experienced lateral movements within longstanding teams depending on the issues. Yeah, thank you, Brianna. Yes, and this will be in the cheat sheet, so you can look at all of this afterwards. I'm going to introduce you to an expert on trust. And his name is Stephen M.R. Covey. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Stephen Covey, who wrote The 7 Habits of Effective People. This is not him. This is his son, Stephen Covey Jr. And I have my trusted book, The Speed of Trust. This I have been using in training for the last, I believe, 15 years. It's such an incredible resource. And it helps break down trust in a way that makes it tangible, easy to diagnose, and better yet, very specific strategies and tools on how to overcome an absence of trust. I'm going to show you a quick video of Stephen describing trust in just a short video. Here it is.
I'm often asked, isn't trust just common sense? Yes, trust is common sense, but it's not common practice. And the reason it's not is because many organizations and many leaders are doing what I call counterfeit behavior. In the Speed of Trust, we've identified 13 specific behaviors that are extraordinarily high leverage in building trust well and quickly. Behaviors like talking straight and creating transparency and righting wrongs and keeping commitments. Talk straight, for example, means to tell the truth. The opposite is when someone lies. If you lie, you're going to lose trust. If you tell the truth, you're going to build trust. Those are pretty obvious, the behavior and the opposite. Each one of these 13 high trust behaviors has an opposite. It also has a counterfeit. The danger is in the counterfeit. Counterfeit behavior, like counterfeit money, it looks like the real thing, but it's not. Upon closer inspection, you discover that it's fake. It's fraudulent. Let me give you an example. The counterfeit behavior of talk straight is when you spin and twist and manipulate and posture. You see, you technically tell the truth, but leave the wrong impression. You say, I didn't lie, and you didn't, but you misled. You withheld information. Here's what makes this hard. You see, we can get results through counterfeit behavior, but you know what? It comes at a cost, and often it's an enormous cost. Every time there's counterfeit behavior, there is a tax, and trust goes down. People can sense it. When you spin, you'll begin to find going forward that everything you say gets discounted, diluted, taxed. When you play this out now, on a team or on a project, in a department, in an organization, the costs are devastating. The even bigger problem is that when most people behave the counterfeit, they're not even aware of it. You see, we're deeply scripted. Counterfeit behavior is not only socially acceptable, it becomes the prevailing norm in the culture, the prevailing way we operate. It's when people spin instead of talking straight. They have hidden agendas instead of creating transparency. They cover up and disguise problems instead of righting the wrong. They overpromise and underdeliver instead of keeping commitments. And that's what's happening on many teams and organizations today. As a result, it taxes us at every gate. You see, it's not just the work we do inside our teams that matter, it's how we do what we do. Counterfeit behavior doesn't just impact organizational performance, it determines it. We're Franklin Covey, and we know trust.
Alicia says, like every politician, yes. It is a big topic, and I don't know if we can resolve all the trust issues in one masterclass, but I can tell you that when there is trust, work flows. And that's why the book is called The Speed of Trust. When the trust is high, things get approved, you delegate, people get things done, people come back, they communicate, and you're able to speed through work tasks. When there is no trust, when we talked earlier about the stuck in the mud, the sludge, things take a lot longer to get approval. Things have to be checked and checked again and again. And people don't trust, so there's got to be a lot of back and forth and checking agreements. That's why we have so many lawyers to check on contracts, because there is a lack of trust. I mean, that's a very, very simple summary, but if there is trust, in fact, it will make work go so much more smoothly. And again, I'm going to emphasize, it's the bedrock, it's the foundation of high-performing teams. If there's an absence of trust, and you are in a position where what the behaviors that Stephen Covey described is in your workspace, what can you do? You can't change someone else's behavior. But my suggestion is you can start with you. There's something that you can do about it. And let me give you a quick solution right now.
I'm often asked,
So how do you build trust with your team? And I'm going to ask you to use Slido again and just input. And it could be a phrase, it could be a word. How do you build trust with your team? What do you do? What are you doing right now? And we're going to populate this, create a word cloud. And let's see and check the wisdom in the room. I know you've got a lot of great strategies. Many of you are doing things well. Alicia says, Helen says, be dependable. You can put in the chat or put in the Slido. So Brianna says, shared values. Ding, 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 you've got it. Deliver what I promise. Transparency, check in, be supportive. That's great, thank you. Any more? Fulfill promises. Be empathetic. Yes. There's a huge scope of behaviors and ways of being, your character. Let's wait a couple more minutes. Thank you for your participation. Be realistic about what I say I'll do and deliver it on time. Do what I say what I do. I love that. That's definitely a way to build trust. Be approachable. Great. I'm going to capture all this and send it to you in our follow-up. And Brianna also said, don't shy away from conflicts. Thank you. Conflict is the big one. You have to be conflict capable. I heard this term last week in a training. The more conflict capable you are, the higher up you will move within the organization. Not only are you able to handle the difficult challenges, but you engender trust by being able to resolve conflict and dysfunction. So being conflict capable, be available, welcome feedback. Thank you so much for your great participation. Yes, Alicia, conflict capable. So let me show you, break it down for you. So all of these things are great, and they are things that have worked well for you. If I were to give you a simple playbook and a simple action plan that you can follow, would that be helpful? Yeah. So based on the speed of trust, and I've used this in training quite often when we spend a whole day on trust. Trust is such an important part of being a leader. So in the book, The Speed of Trust, we talk about 13 trust behaviors. I'm not going to talk about all of them in depth, but I'm just going to run through them with you. And you're going to receive all this in the cheat sheet. If ever you get the book, you'll be able to get to the details of each behavior. But what I'm going to do with you now is I'm going to introduce the 13 and let me know which one is your strong suit. So the first 5, these 5 are what we call character behaviors. Talk straight. Stephen Covey already said it in the video, is about being honest, being straight, talking straight, and not making up stuff. You are not manipulating facts. You're telling the truth. And he said that, like, it's so easy. Just be honest and don't lie. So there's talk straight. Demonstrate respect is another one. It's about treating people the same. He talks about it in a number of years ago when I heard an interview. He said that demonstrating respect is treating people, the ones who actually don't have a voice, those who can't do anything for you. The way you treat the janitor is the same as if the way you treat a CEO. And it's not because someone is looking, it's because that's just the way you behave. That's demonstrate respect. Number 3 is create transparency. We talk a lot about transparency, being open, declaring your intentions, and not having any hidden agendas. Right wrongs. This is a good one. Right wrongs is if you made a mistake, you own up to it and you fix it. You apologize and then take the action to make it right. And you show some humility while you're at it. Number 5, show loyalty. You give credit to others and you speak about them well, especially when they're not in the room. And you do not speak poorly of a team member, especially if they're not in the room. So I'm going to ask you to pop in the chat. Which one is your strong character behavior? Which one you know for a fact that you are strong and people know you by this? And I would say I'm not as great as at talk straight. I could do better in talk straight, but I'm definitely good in demonstrate respect. Okay, we've got 2, we've got right wrongs. Number 2, demonstrate respect. Thank you. That's great. So remember, these are character behaviors. The next 5 are competence behaviors. So you may trust someone's character, but you may not trust their competence. Maybe they're new to the team and they are inexperienced. They need to spend a little bit more time before they can earn your trust in their competence. So these next 5, pretty straightforward. Number 6 is you got to deliver results. You're constantly improving. You're capable, or you are focused on being a constant learner and growing as a result of getting feedback. And then 7, get better. Number 6 is deliver results. That one is pretty straight and obvious. You deliver results. Get better is constantly learning. Number 8 is confront reality. People, leaders who do not face reality, who hide, are not trustworthy. You need to be able to address the elephant in the room, and you're able to tackle difficult or undiscussable issues head on. Of course, you do it regulated. You use our stress management techniques so that you can handle these situations, but you're not avoiding or denying. Number 9, clarify expectations. You disclose, reveal, validate expectations. You regularly communicate your expectations because trust breaks down when expectations are uncleared or people don't share them with you. It's like somehow if they don't share it with you, then they have the upper hand. That's not a trustworthy behavior. And then number 10 is practice accountability. Hold yourself accountable first and don't blame others or make excuses when things don't go as planned. So out of these 5, which one is your strong suit? Which one is what you are known for? Number 8, get better. Yes, I'm definitely good at getting better. Yeah. Number 9, clarify expectations. Thank you, Kelly. 6 and 7. Great. So you have your strong behaviors. And I'm going to share with you the last 3. The last 3 are a combination of character and competence. So listen first. That is kind of obvious, but to be a trustworthy leader, they listen and they listen actively. As I said, I attended a training last week and I am blown away again at just how powerful active listening is. And listening engenders trust because you're listening and you are seeking to understand before you speak. You're giving this person your full attention. Number 12 is to keep commitments, say what you will do, and then you do it. I think somebody already mentioned that as a way to build trust with your team. And the last one, extend trust. This one I've heard in my classroom or in training, people say, I'm not going to extend trust. These people are not worthy of trust. Well, we don't blindly trust. I want to emphasize that you extend trust abundantly to those who have earned it, and you extend trust conditionally to those who are still earning it. So I hope this helps. This helps to break down the trust behaviors, and whether you feel like on your team, you need to work on character behaviors or competence or a combination. I wouldn't recommend tackling all 13 of them because if there are some trust issues, it's not going to help to bombard people with something like this. I think we start with one at a time, and it could be as easy as let's start with get better because we can all benefit from focusing on one single behavior. So out of these remaining 3, which one calls out to you? Which one are you good at? 11, 12, or 13? Okay, Khalid said, I believe that's Madhu, is it? Mark, we've got 11, we got 11, 12. Got a good team here. You got some good trust behaviors going on. Thank you. Michael is 12. Keep commitments. I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that a lot of you keep your commitments. I have to admit, I can do better with that. So this training was actually very good for me to remind myself to keep my commitments. So here are 5 ways you can build trust now. And you take what you like. You are going to receive all 13 trust behaviors, but I thought these would be the simple ones that you could do immediately. And they are, do what you say you will do and follow through on your word. This one is so straightforward. And quite a few of you already said this is one of your strengths. The second one is give credit and give it freely and publicly. Really give credit to your coworker, to someone on your team, and sing their praises. But one caveat to this is it has to be sincere, has to be genuine, and ideally very specific. So instead of just a broad, well done, amazing job, be very specific. So let's see, next one is deliver a clear message with genuine care for the other person. This one is a little challenging because this could be a tough message. And this is the one where you might need to prepare in advance. Quite a few of you have attended a previous masterclass, Kind Words for Tough Talks. We're presenting another one in October. if you want to come back for a refresher, this is a good one for how to deliver a potentially difficult communication, but you do it with respect and genuine care. And it requires you to stop and prepare and think about this person. That already creates trust between the two of you. This one is interesting. Assume positive intent. So let's say you receive an email and maybe you were overlooked for something, or this person went ahead and didn't copy you. This one is extending trust. Assume the best of that person and then go and verify, because there are a lot of times, and I've experienced this myself, where we jump to the wrong conclusion or we jump to the negative, and then later we find out that it was all in our head. Last one, active listening. Again, I'm just going to emphasize, this is going to be your shortcut. This will be your quick path to building trust. I'm going to pause for a moment here and see if you like any of these. Do you think that you'll be able to share this with your team? Or there's something that you feel inspired to take on before I move on to the next topic? Please feel free to unmute yourself or put a comment in the chat about what you're inspired to do. What are some ways that you can build trust now? You can't change the behavior of someone else, but you can change your behavior, and hopefully your behavior will inspire others.
I would say probably having the ability to deliver a clear message with genuine care for the other person, because I find that stuff very hard, like, to do. So I'm inspired to do better at that.
Thank you, Helen. And we've shared a lot of resources to help you be better at that. So please reach out to us if you want to have some additional resources or just have a quick chat about it. But yeah, I'm glad that you are taking on this stance. And then Pauline says, assume positive intent. Yeah, just give people the benefit of the doubt. Yeah. Assume.
Just going back, sorry to interrupt. Sorry, going back to Helen's one. I think that's a really important one, because it's almost like you're providing someone with a teachable moment. Because I'm an ex-teacher, and half the time I may over-explain things, but it's very good to get people to understand why you're either asking them to do something or why you're helping them to actually show that there are more than one way to do it, sort of thing. And it's about broadening and skill development and stuff like that. And that's where the clear message can be transmitted, because it's not just about what a goal is or what the end product is, but it's about the skill and the relationship that goes into making that work. You know what I mean? And it sort of draws on the other things, but it is it's a good opportunity to actually rub shoulders and get hands dirty with someone else, because you're not directing or necessarily delegating, but sometimes you're just working with them, and it's good to sort of chat about best ways to do things or different ways to do things. So I just wanted to put that across.
Yeah, I really appreciate your comment, Mark. That's it shows what an empathetic leader you are, and that if you do this well with a sincere intention, it really solidifies that, not only solidify that relationship, but you leave an impact that will stay with this person for many years to come. And it's never easy to give tough feedback or a challenging piece of communication without skill. And it requires some practice. It requires you to stop and take a look inside what your true intention is. But if you do it well, wow, that relationship is solid. Thank you, Mark. And please, all of you, if you have something to share, I feel like we are in the company of a lot of experienced leaders. So please feel free to share from your experience, which you feel might benefit the others. And Alicia said, many managers need to work on assuming positive intent. Yes, extend trust. So maybe, Alicia, you can share the 13 trust behaviors. And it's an interesting topic, and we will get to we'll look at it from another angle. And the next piece I'm going to talk about after finishing up trust is psychological safety. I know that many of you here, if not all, have heard of the term psychological safety. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the difference. What is the difference between trust and psychological safety? So I first came across this term in 2012 when I was doing a lot of research and actually for developing trust for leaders. And for those of you who are familiar, this came out of a project at Google, and it's called Project Aristotle, because Google wanted to find out what are the components of a high-performing team. They wanted to know what makes a high-performing team so they could replicate it. And through extensive research, they couldn't quite figure out. It wasn't about the combination of team members. And with Google, they have algorithms, they have the data. So they realized that with enough data, they can solve any problem. They could figure it out. But they were stumped until they came across Amy Edmondson's research. And for those of you who are familiar with her work, it was through her extensive research that started, and this is around the time that I mentioned about the project, this was when the term became well known. And now today it's in our corporate workplace lexicon. So what is psychological safety? It's the belief that it's safe for people to take risks and that they can trust one another, that it won't threaten their status or career. They feel accepted and respected. So that might be similar to trust, right? So how do we draw the distinctions? And let me just hang on a minute. Here is Amy Edmondson. I mean, she's done the corporate workplace a huge service by bringing in this component, because now it's no longer just trusting one another. It's about a set of norms. What she describes as psychological safety is a set of team norms that people will not be punished for speaking up, and they are encouraged to bring up ideas, questions, concerns, and that the team is safe for taking interpersonal risks. Think about that for a minute. If there were team norms in place, not about how skilled you are, how much trust you have, it's the agreement within a team that you can ask questions, you can make mistakes. This is a big one, is that mistakes are not punished. So we call these team norms. That's the difference between trust and psychological safety. So we talked about dysfunction when there's an absence of trust, but what happens when people do not feel psychologically safe? Think about that for a moment. You do not feel psychologically safe. Different from physical safety is psychological safety. So you don't want to take risks. You want to play it safe. If there's a mistake, you want to cover it up. And because you cover it up, the mistakes are repeated. So the research piece that really got Google's attention was a study that Amy Edmondson and her team did with a group of nurses. She thought that because this team had a huge number of mistakes, she thought that they would be low performing. But this was where the light bulb moment hit, because they made more mistakes. And there was the kind of team culture that talked openly about the mistakes to avoid to have these mistakes happen again. The performance was higher. So think about psychological safety when it comes to failures, making mistakes, when things don't go well. So there's a lack of motivation, there's more. People become siloed and bureaucratic. And then because of that, we become secretive and we're not collaborating. And then as a result, there's high conflict, there's tension, lack of creativity, low engagement, all the fun stuff, right? lack of inauthentic communication, people just showing up, doing what they need to do, and then leaving. And then as a result, high turnover. Not a lot of fun. So how does this differ from low trust? They're both equally not sustainable for high performance. And at the base, if either of these are missing, it's going to be tough to be high performing. So my emphasis today here is that we don't need to look at how to be more creative or how do we innovate, how do we take risks. In fact, let's just get the trust and the psychological safety down pat. Let's work on these two. If you can shift the needle slightly on either one of these, the performance is going to be so much easier. So let's look at it again. So Alicia says, for the one person that speaks up, there are probably 10 more that want to ask the question. Many managers. Okay. Alicia, could you explain that? I just want to make sure I got your comment. I understand your comment. So if there's one person that speaks up, there's probably 10 more that want to.
Yeah. It was when you were talking about having the psychological safety to speak your truth, and
Yes.
I am one of those people that do aspire to do that.
Yes.
But you know that for the one person that has the confidence to do that, there's many, many more that are too afraid to ask the question, that want to be asking the question. So you need those people in the team that do have the confidence to be able to take it on behalf of other people.
Absolutely. I cannot agree more, because if people go along, and you've seen this, people, they're team players. So they go along, they don't push back. And it's the people who push back that actually make the team higher performing. The one who will not accept status quo. So there's a lot of value in pushing back and speaking your truth. And whether the truth is right or not, it doesn't matter. It's the fact that we all get a voice at the table. So we'll talk about this in a moment. Thank you so much for bringing this up. And it's key, actually, to psychological safety. And Mark says, lack of trust and no psychological safety correlates with psychosocial workers, compensation claims, and psychological injuries. I so agree. I worked in a federally regulated organization, and there were so many of these. And in fact, it links back to lack of trust and psychological safety. And what we want to do is we want to address these issues at the root, and not just put on Band-Aid solutions, not go on a team building retreat, go and have a team dinner. These things might be nice, but they don't resolve what's underneath. So we talked about the trust behaviors, and I won't have time to get into all the ways that you could build psychological safety, but I do have an infographic on 10 ways. I'll pop that in the chat. Dame has it, and if she's able to pop in the chat, you can download it. If not, I'll send it to you in a follow-up email. But let's talk about team norms. What are the tangible or the invisible norms in how your team works together? So a team norm could be when people come in, there's greetings in the morning. That's a team norm, that you acknowledge everyone. That's an unspoken team norm. And if someone is new to your team, they would feel it because it's a norm. That's the way you operate. And then another one is in meetings, everyone is alert. People are not allowed to be on their phones. That's another team norm. So one of the team norms that we established on a previous team that I worked with is no side talk. In a meeting, it was just a ground rule. There's no side talk, because even if you're saying something encouraging, it gives the impression that there's some kind of side conversations. That's not beneficial. When we're in a meeting, we're all focused. So think about the team norms that are in your workplace right now. I'm going to share with you two. You may already use these, and they may already in place for you, but it's something that you can consider adding to or adding a couple of extra touches to your existing team norms. So Dame has put in the chat 10 ways to build psychological safety. It's just an infographic. If you would like more information on this, please reach out. I definitely am passionate about this topic. I've been training on this for the last 10 years. I can tell you, this really makes the difference. So let me share with you 2 quick team norms that you can take on board. One of them is the team charter. And the second one is what we call the blameless postmortem. You can call it the blameless postmortem, or maybe another more positive term is called the retrospective, which is you're just looking at what went well and what could be better. But the team charter is a very easy one. It is a co-created document that clearly defines the team's purpose. And most importantly, what are your rules for engagement? And you answer questions such as, how will we give and receive feedback? The blameless postmortem it's just a structured process after an incident or something not going well to determine what happened, why it happened, and how to improve. And the key word here is blameless. It's not about assigning blame. A lot of times we say, who did it? Who's to blame? You trace back to who was at fault. But a blameless postmortem is just being curious. It encourages candid, non-judgmental discussions about what happened and then what we could do better next time. It's set up to make people feel safe about speaking up, especially about mistakes and near misses. So I know that some of you work in engineering, public sectors, or certain industries where incident reports are very important. I worked in the rail industry, and I know that the organization had very clear documents, what we call investigation or reports. It's something to not take lightly, okay? It's very serious if there's an incident. In this context, I'm talking about maybe missing a project deadline or a presentation that didn't go as smoothly. How do we get the team together and do a postmortem? Or in agile transformations, I'm sure you've heard the term agile recently. There's a lot of buzz about organizations becoming agile. It's what we call a retrospective. I like the word retrospective, but I'll leave it to you to see which one you prefer. Now, the team charter. Team charter is great. It's just a document that you put together, and you may have maybe 4 items. These are the suggested team charter items, and you and your team get together, really clearly define your team's purpose. And I think earlier on, somebody said, you have shared values, and determine what's the purpose? Why does your team exist? And make it very clear. Everyone has a chance to give their input. And then you are very clear about your roles and responsibilities. That one, I think, is straightforward, but it's not communicated enough, I feel. People assume that once we know what everyone's role is, then we just all know. But it's something that needs to be communicated on a regular basis, because responsibilities shift, change, and we want to be clear on the roles and what each one is responsible for. Next one is communication norms. How do we communicate with each other? And I added here that face-to-face or phone call is preferred. That's just an example, okay, of a communication norm. And I pulled this from Agile because I recently delivered a training on Agile, and I was pleasantly surprised at how much they emphasize communication. I'll share another one with you in a moment, but this one is the key here. What are the rules of engagement? How do we give feedback? How do we handle disagreements? How do we ensure everyone's voice is heard? And when there is conflict, what is our commitment to each other? So if you're able to establish the rules of engagement, this will help with not only creating the psychological safety, but it's something that everyone has a chance to contribute to. And we recommend that everyone sign it. And then it's posted visually if you are working in a common space, or it's shared digitally, and it's reviewed every quarter, every month, or before every monthly meeting. Very simple, but very powerful. And here is an example of one. And Asana has a template for this. So, oh, Dame, thank you. She's popped a link in the chat, and you can just go and download this. So if you want to create a team charter, if you don't have one already, follow their step-by-step. And you can take all of these or reduce it to 4 or add your own. So I recommend that team charter can be quite motivating. And it's something really straightforward, simple, but it will help you establish a key team norm. So check it out. And then for the blameless postmortem, it's such a mouthful. I'm going to say retrospective. It's easier. And we at Hinwood Institute, Barb, Dame, and I, we have a simple postmortem. We say, what happened? What worked? What didn't work? What will we do next time to avoid the mistake from happening again? So I'm sure you have your processes, but it's a matter of making these processes consistent. Okay. We don't want to wait until the extreme disasters or failures for us to come together and do a postmortem. We want to do these on a weekly basis, because on a weekly basis, things don't always work out perfectly. So how do we use these as opportunities and build that muscle for us to be able to talk about our failures, talk about our mistakes, talk about times when we were 60%. We cannot always be delivering at 100%. When we're 60%, let's talk about that gap. Why can't we talk to each other openly about it? So the retrospective is talk about the timeline, what went well, very straightforward, what didn't go well, what were the root causes, and then what did we learn from it, and what are some action steps moving forward. So we'll send all this to you, and I know that you already have something like this in place. How do you make this a team norm? What is a way for you to suggest that we do this on a regular basis? This is the way to increase psychological safety. There are a few other ways, but I thought these two would be really concrete, practical tools that you could apply right away. And then check out the Asana template. Oh my goodness, the sun's come out. Look at the rainbow. Oh, sorry. It's been raining all day and I'm just looking out and there's a rainbow. It's so lovely. Sorry about that. Okay. I get very excited about rainbows. Okay, so next I'm going to talk about the two, trust and psychological safety. I already said that there's so many things we could do to bring a team to high performance, but with these two, if you can get these right, if you can build a solid foundation of these two, the rest will be so much easier. And if there is an absence of trust or psychological safety, let's see if we can move the needle. I want to talk about the difference. Trust is the confidence we have in another person or group to be reliable and to act with integrity. Trust is a lot of times about a relationship. Usually it's between two people, but it can be with teams, departments, or the entire organization. And I would love to talk to you about trust all day, but with our short time together, we have certain ways that we trust. We trust companies, we trust a brand. So, trust is a really big piece. But in this context, it's usually about a relationship. Trust does involve some risk because it puts you in a position to be vulnerable, but it does grow over time and it can be earned through consistent experiences of competence and honesty. So remember, competence and character, and also through strong associations or shared history. So one of the reasons that Barbara trusted me and we're able to work pretty much immediately together, and that is because of the person who introduced us. There was a strong association with her business partner. That's the speed of trust. But we want to link that with psychological safety. And for those of you who are already familiar with psychological safety, and after this discussion, I hope you realize how significant psychological safety is and why it needs to be a priority in your leadership and in your team performance strategies. Psychological safety is about the shared set of team norms. Remember, the norms, what the team agrees to. And it can be, the rules can be written or just understood and experienced, but better if they are in black and white, or this is communicated on a regular basis, because these norms allow people to speak up, to admit their mistakes, to ask for help, and to propose new ideas without fear of ridicule or judgment, without fear of ridicule or punishment. Think about that. Think about the times that you did not speak up. And I'm so glad that Alicia is the one who represents those voices who are not as courageous to speak up. And hopefully through that, you help them feel the psychological safety. So I'm going to give you one final note about distinguishing the two. The core question with trust is, are you competent and do you have good intentions toward me? That is the key question. With psychological safety, the core question is, will I be embarrassed, blamed, or punished if I speak up, ask a question, or make a mistake here? So I have a couple of scenarios, and now I'm going to ask you, I'm going to present to you a few scenarios, and you tell me if it is trust or if it is psychological safety. So this scenario is Maria. She is your coworker, and she just gave a presentation to a client. She did a great job, but you notice that she shared some outdated data that could affect her credibility. You have a pretty good relationship with her, so you pull her aside after the meeting to give her a heads up. So is this an act of trust or psychological safety? I'll ask you to put in the chat. What do you think? Mark says trust. Kelly says trust. Psychological safety could be both. Yes, trust. Okay, ding, ding, ding. It is trust. It's trust because it is a one-to-one interaction. And, if you didn't have trust, why would you bother saying anything? You would just say, well, let her deal with it on her own. So because you have a good relationship and you are willing to take a risk, it's because you have the relationship and you know that she will not take it personally. She trusts you to have her best interests at heart. So it's actually quite a few trust behaviors here. Is number 1, talk straight. Number 5, show loyalty. And number 7, get better. Okay, next one. Is this trust or psychological safety? You discovered that you made a mistake and it's going to cause a delay to the project. No one else knows about it. And you could probably hide it or try to recover for a few days, but it could actually potentially get a lot worse. So you immediately go to your team and leader to flag the mistake and the impact. Is this trust or psychological safety? Mark, is that your answer to this scenario? Yes, it is, right? Yeah. He was really fast. Psychological safety. So what do you think? Is this trust or psychological safety? Kelly, thank you for using PS. In fact, I was looking for a way to shorten it because it's a lot of words to type. So PS, thank you. Let's go with PS. All right, psychological safety. Tim also says PS. Ding, 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 you are right. It's mostly psychological safety. There's some trust there as well. So your decision to proactively confess a mistake is actually based on your trust in the group, the group norm, to own up to mistakes. Will they help you solve it or will they blame you? So if you feel that it's safe to bring it up, that means you have psychological safety. It's also a trust behavior, right, wrongs, but it's mostly psychological safety. So you guys are doing great. You're really catching on. This next scenario is you notice that in the last couple of months, your entire team is totally overwhelmed and they're on the verge of breakout. The workload is unsustainable, but it's because there's been a few crises. People have been working around the clock, but right now you can see that it's just not sustainable. So at the next meeting, you put up your hand and you say, we have a problem here with workload and prioritization. Can we as a group reevaluate our commitments and processes? So is this trust or psychological safety? Brianna says psychological safety. Okay. PS, thank you. Kelly says both. Yes. Both. Yes. It is mostly psychological safety, but there's definitely trust there as well because there's trust among the team members. But as a whole, it's a group norm that you feel safe enough that you can say something that is really challenging the status quo and the way the team operates. You don't know if the team members will be behind you. You're just putting yourself out, taking that step, that brave step forward. And it's suggesting that the system is broken. So you believe that by you speaking out, that there will be willingness to have an uncomfortable conversation. So it's definitely got to be psychological safety there. Okay, last one. Is this trust or psychological safety? You've just joined a project team, and the team leader has been very supportive and said that the culture here welcomes all questions because it's one of the team's keys to success. So during a status update, the team is using an acronym you've never heard of, and you're lost. You stop the conversation and say, hey, I'm sorry, can somebody explain what that acronym means? I'm not familiar with it. Is this trust or psychological safety? Alicia, you said trust, PS, both. PS. Definitely psychological safety. It's more psychological safety than trust. And again, you're new to the team, you don't know. So you're also trusting the team leader, that the team leader, what they told you is in fact truth, that this culture welcomes all questions. So there's got to be some faith here in extending trust, but it's mostly psychological safety. So thank you for playing along. You guys caught on. What is the difference? So I hope that as a result of this, now you know, what are the issues that you want to look at? Is it a trust issue or is it a psychological safety issue? And I have a tool, but I want to just check with you. If you're doing an intervention, it's never good to just go back and throw stuff at people. You need to take a step back. You need to strategize. And if you are, in fact, in one of these situations, reach out and talk to me. I'd be more than happy to map out a simple strategy. I really don't recommend going in and telling people what they need to do. I recommend, I did this with a client and we did a 52-week team pulse check. So what we did was week to week, we did an anonymous team pulse check to see where people were at. And it was done with a lot of good intention. It was set up properly. So I don't recommend doing this unless you have mapped out a consistent practice. But I just wanted to give you an example of ways that you can get a pulse check. And the pulse check is not trying to figure out who answered what, but it's so that everyone can answer honestly and know that if we are at a 3.2 in this trust behavior, we might be able to do something about it to bring it to a 4, if not a 5. So here are some of the simple questions that we would put out. And this is something that my client and I, we worked out, and it was done through an anonymous online digital tool. You could do it through Slack or Slido. You know, we were able to get input from all of you without identifying who answered what. And this is just an example of like 8 weeks. Now, this is already 2 months. And one of the reasons I caution against doing this without a strategy is if you do 1 week and then you skip one, there's going to be some gaps there. You want to make sure that you're doing this on a regular basis and you are addressing the content. I know that a lot of organizations will conduct surveys, but they don't address the content, or they delay. They take 6 to 8 months before they address some of the challenging comments. It's really important to have the courage to stand up and say, look, these comments were hurtful, not hurtful. The comments were hard to take, but we're willing to work on this together. So this is just a quick example of like, we're going to work on this behavior. I want to know, how are we doing with clarify expectations? If that week the group score is low, then maybe it's an indication. We'll say, hey, I think next week we want to make sure that we clarify expectations. We have an opportunity. So again, just note that it can be part of your strategy, but I caution against jumping in, and definitely come and have a chat. We'd love to talk to you about it. A team pulse is always good to get a feel of where you're at. If you're at a 2.5, then we have some work to do, but at least we know where our starting point is. 2.5 to get to 3. So now we're going to talk about how to get from dysfunction to high performance, assuming that you've done some work. And remember, I've said this already a couple of times. If you can work out some of the trust issues and psychological safety, the high performing parts will be a lot easier. So I have another model, which is 8 characteristics of a high performing team. And you've probably heard of a lot of these before. I don't recommend going into these until you've looked at trust and psychological safety. And if you look at this ring, there's 8 of these pieces that form a high-performing team. Look at trust and psychological safety as the outer rim. And I lack the graphic skills, so I really wanted to create that desperately, but maybe Tim can help me out with that. I wanted to create this outer rim with those trust and psychological safety icons, but I couldn't. So this is the best I could do. So the 8 characteristics, pretty straightforward. We've already talked about a lot of these. Common purpose and goals, having clear roles, effective communication, participative and collaborative leadership, meaning we have norms that include every voice, that everyone has a chance to have a voice, especially in those decisions that affect them. Of course, with a high-performing team, you can have the best characters, you trust each other, you love each other, but you also have to have high levels of technical and interpersonal skills. In fact, a lot of teams tend to have number 5, but they're not so great on the others. Number 6 is open relationships and trust. We talked about this. Accountability. And finally, we need to have rewards and recognition. So these are the 8. I wish I had time to go through them, and we'd love to get examples from you. But I thought that we could focus on number 3, effective communication, just as a group for us to share some strategies that have worked out well for us. Communication is so important in so many areas of our lives. And if we look at this one characteristic, and these are the signs of success. Oh, by the way, I have a diagnostic tool for this, and each characteristic has 3 or 4 statements that you get to rate yourself on, from strongly agree to strongly disagree. And it's something that you could do with your team, and you can, again, collect the data. This one, I think, is a little easier to work with versus trust and PS. So I'll happily share this tool with you, but I want to just, with our time remaining, talk briefly about communication. And I'd love to hear from you what your best tips are so that we can all collectively learn from the wisdom of the entire group. So these are the keys for success. we openly, honestly communicate our thoughts, ideas, and feelings. Without trust, this is going to be very hard to achieve, right? We welcome feedback and see it as opportunity to do better for ourselves. Without trust, we would look at this as blaming or micromanaging. So again, that trust piece is so important. But communication is about how do we give feedback? How do we give and receive feedback? Third one is we seek to understand through asking questions and listening before we judge. But boy, if there's no psychological safety, this one can be challenging. And then the last one is we take time to understand one another through different ways of communication. So I will share with you one that came out of my Agile training, and I love it because it's simply face-to-face is the most efficient and most effective communication. If that's not available, a video chat. And if that's not available, a phone call. It is so much more effective. And if we make this a communication norm or something that we as a team agree to, as we have a prioritized list on how we communicate, this could really change the game. And I'm particularly inspired because this is a principle, because the agile transformation is made up of 16 principles. And these are software developers. They are the ones that came up. It's a key agile principle. And the principle is the most efficient and effective method of conveying information to and within a development team is face-to-face communication, is a face-to-face conversation. So how do we bring this into our space? I'm going to ask you to pop in the chat and just take a moment to think about your best communication strategy. You can unmute yourself, but what is it that you do with communication that has worked well for you in terms of how effective the team is in their communication? So pop in the chat or unmute yourselves. Love to hear from you. And we have a few minutes remaining. Oh, Renee, I saw your message. I hope you're able to come back. Brianna, excellent. Meetings with clear objectives and actions and follow-up. Something that's documented and shared. Any others?
I just think definitely face to face if it's something very important, because you can pick up on non-verbal cues from people that you can't through not seeing them face to face or through emails and other communication.
Yes.
The issue,
Yep.
the issue I have with face-to-face is I have a very bad memory, so I do ask people to email me rather than just face-to-face.
Yes.
And I find that it also helps with keeping people to their word when you email them, because you can refer to it. You can say, here is the email I sent you, rather than remember that conversation we had, and they say no. It's like, oh, okay.
I totally agree. So you do have the email communication. And just want to check though, how many of you have gotten caught up in this email chain that's back and forth, and it goes on? And yeah, so sometimes a quick face-to-face or a phone call will resolve that. And show of hands, how many of you use AI now in yours to record notes? Okay, well, that's another option. If for Zoom meetings, it's not to check in on people, but it's just a great document for you to follow up. And I know some people are not comfortable with AI listening in or note taking, but just note that this is a way forward. It's a very efficient way to keep track. So let's see. Regular face-to-face check-ins, great. Use other language check-ins. Alicia, again, what do you mean use other language?
So
Yeah.
there's there. So like not everything is a meeting. Like, so if it is a check-in with someone, if it's a catch-up with someone, if it's a discussion that you're wanting to unpack a certain thing, it doesn't have to be named as a meeting. I think that can help set the tone and the expectations a bit more clearly.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yes, tone can be lost and misunderstood. So much can be misinterpreted through text, chat, and email. Thank you, Renee. And check their understanding. Thank you, Brianna. And you're right, Alicia, not everything is a formal meeting. And remember, those check-ins and just that quick phone call, that quick connection as you walk by their desk, these are ways to build connection, build trust. So I guess I also want to emphasize the team norms. What are those formal channels and like the weekly meetings that you have in place, or the round robins where at a monthly meeting, everyone has a chance to share something that's happening for them? And we have a couple of team norms. So whenever we have a weekly team meeting, and before every team meeting, we don't jump into the content. We do a quick check-in and say, where is our energy level? And we'll just do 1 to 2 minutes of just sharing what's going on for us. That way is just to make us more connected and to build the relationships. We're not just work robots. We don't just jump in. So I found that that simple norm really adds another dimension of building trust. So I am conscious of time and I want to start wrapping up. So we unpacked a lot, and as usual, there's way more information that we have time for. So I want to just invite you to review the content that we'll share with you after this masterclass. You'll receive a couple emails from us. And definitely, because this is a big topic, if you want to have a conversation, if there's something that I can help with, please reach out. I'm more than happy to share the resources that I have. So I'm going to jump ahead, and sorry, we didn't get to go into a breakout room discussion, but here's a schedule of our upcoming masterclasses. And Barbara will be delivering from Smash to Smashing It. It's really about the stress management techniques. How do we stay on top of a rapidly changing, fast-paced environment? So she's going to give you some solid techniques. I will be running Kind Words for Tough Talks again. That was quite popular. We got a lot of positive feedback. I'm very happy to run it again. And then the one on October 21st is how to handle those awkward and challenging conversations. So it's I'm going to be sharing with you a couple of models on how to prepare. I think someone said earlier, I think it was Alicia, about having those tough conversations. How do we do that with respect and care? And then backed by popular demand, dealing with difficult people. That's one of Barb's most popular masterclasses. So I am going to wrap up here, and please give us a review or reach out. We love hearing from you, but we'll be communicating with you. If you're a first-time attendee of our masterclasses, you know that. Sorry, if you're a first-time attendee, you will receive a number of follow-up emails, and we're very happy to share the slides. It's just it's out of context if you're just reading through the slides. In fact, the cheat sheet is far more resourceful. It gives you a summary, and we provide links to the resources. And then I am going to give away a book. So this is my old copy. I'm not going to give you this one. The pages are all yellow, but I have a brand new one, The Speed of Trust. It's a current edition. He's added some new content, and Rebecca Marrow has also contributed to the book. So let me just stop share for a moment. I'm going to end the slideshow, and then I'm going to spin the wheel. Okay, are you ready? This is such a great book. Has anyone read this or come across this before? No? You're going to love it. It's so practical, and it really talks about the 13 behaviors in tangible, practical chunks that you can work with. And as I said, I've been using this for my training for the last 15 years. So let me pull up the wheel. Okay. Can everyone see the wheel? Yes. All right, I'm going to spin it. Karen, is Karen with us? I just want to know.
Yeah, he's there, Kaylin.
Yeah, that's me. Thank you.
Congratulations. Let's see. Did you think that you would win a prize?
Not at all. No.
So, sorry, did I pronounce your name correctly, Karen? Karen?
Sorry, say.
Did I pronounce your name right, Karen?
Yep, that's the one.
Excellent. So, Karen, we will reach out to you and get your postal address. And where are you? Are you in Australia?
Yeah, in Tennant Creek. Sorry, I'm just getting a call.
No worries.
Yeah.
It's
Yes,
especially meaningful when it comes all the way from Canada. So I'm going to put it in the post. We'll get your address. And then if you look in the chat, Tim has created an infographic. So Tim is extremely talented. He's joined some of our master classes. And he's created this beautiful graphic summary of our session today. And I know Tim will also touch it up and he will give us a final version. But go ahead and download it. It's beautiful. So it is the time to wrap up. We're right on the hour and you're free to go. Thank you so much for being a part of this today. And I'd love to hear any final comments. If you have any questions, if you want to book some time to talk about these big pieces, reach out and you can just book a time and reply to our emails. Thank you. Please unmute yourself if you have any final comments. Otherwise, wish you a wonderful day and we'll see you next time.
Thanks,
Thank
Cecilia.
you for a great class.
Thank you,
was
Cecilia. That
awesome.
was amazing.
Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. Great to have you with us.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Michael. Good night.
How do I don't know how to stop this.
Just
Okay,
end meeting
leave.
on the bottom right corner. Leave meeting.
Found it. Found
Yes.
it.
Bye, Karen. I will reach out to you.
Cheers. Thank you.
Bye. Bye, Kelly. It's great to see you. Stop recording.